stop playing and I see the discipline of the morning mind. Part 1. Morning arrives quietly, but it does not arrive gently. It does not ask whether we are ready to face ourselves. It does not negotiate with our fears, our comforts, or the habits that slowly hollow out the human spirit. The morning simply arrives in with it, the silent demand that we rise into the person we claim to be. Many people begin the day by seeking comfort. We begin it by seeking truth, and truth is rarely polite. For too long we have been trained to play nice, to soften our words, dilute our convictions, and hide our discipline behind smiles that mean nothing. We are taught that harmony is more valuable than honesty, that approval is more important than character. But the morning exposes the lie, because when the world is quiet, when the noise has not yet begun, there is only one question that remains: who governs the mind today? Is it fear? Is it anger? Is it the hunger for approval? Or is it reason? The ancient emperor once wrote in his private reflections, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being." Those words were never meant as comfort. They were meant as a command. The work of a human being is not to drift through life seeking the softest path. It is not to flatter others or disguise the truth so that everyone feels pleased. The work of a human being is far heavier than that. It is to govern the self, and that governance begins each morning with a difficult realization. Niceness without principle is weakness. When we play nice to avoid conflict, we surrender authority over our own character. When we hide our convictions so that others remain comfortable, we slowly become strangers to ourselves. This is not kindness, it is surrender. The first discipline: confront the inner court before we speak to the world. We must stand trial before our own mind. There is a courtroom within each of us. In it, our thoughts argue, accuse, and attempt to justify themselves. Excuses rise like clever lawyers. Comfort pleads for mercy. Fear demands retreat, but reason must sit as judge. One teacher of old slavery and hardship once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Most people misunderstand this. They imagine strength means controlling others, shaping circumstances, forcing the world to bend. But that is the illusion of control. The real battlefield lies elsewhere. It lies in the silent war between impulse and discipline. Each morning we must decide whether our emotions will command us or whether we will command them. If resentment speaks, do we obey? If fear whispers, do we kneel? If anger rises, do we let it take the throne? Or do we examine it calmly and say, "You may enter, but you will not rule"? This is where the path truly begins. Not with shouting, not with dramatic declarations, but with quiet authority over one's own mind. The second discipline: refuse the masked playing. Nice is often nothing more than wearing a mask. A mask that says yes when the mind says no. A mask that laughs when the soul feels disgust. A mask that pretends weakness is compassion. But masks have consequences. Each time we wear one, we train ourselves to distrust our own judgment. We become actors in a life that was meant to be lived honestly. A philosopher once warned his students, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." This advice sounds harsh, but it contains a strange freedom, because the moment we stop performing for the approval of others, something powerful begins to happen. We become difficult to manipulate. When a person no longer fears disapproval, the chains of public opinion fall away, and with those chains removed, clarity emerges. we begin to see what truly matters: character, integrity, discipline, truth. These are not polite virtues. They are severe ones. They demand that we speak honestly when silence would be easier. They demand that we act rightly even when approval disappears. They demand that we stand firm while the world shifts like sand beneath our feet. The third discipline: accept the hard role. There will be moments when living with principle makes us appear cold. People will misunderstand firmness as cruelty. They will interpret discipline as arrogance. They will say we have changed, and they will be correct, because growth always looks strange to those who prefer comfort. One ancient thinker wrote, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests brave men. But there is another test, quieter and more dangerous. It is the test of social pressure, the pressure to soften truth so that others feel comfortable, the pressure to remain agreeable, even when agreement would betray our conscience." This is where the phrase, "stop playing nice," reveals its deeper meaning. It does not mean becoming cruel. It does not mean embracing anger. It means refusing to betray reason for the sake of approval. There is a difference between kindness and weakness. Kindness is guided by wisdom. Weakness is guided by fear. When we refuse to play nice, we are not rejecting kindness, we are rejecting fear. The fourth discipline: recognize the enemy within. The greatest threats to our character rarely come from outside. They come from inside. Resentment, jealousy, anger, vanity. These forces disguise themselves as justice, as ambition, as self-respect. But beneath their disguises, they all seek the same thing: control over the mind. One teacher once told his students, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And this is the real tragedy of destructive emotions. They promise power, but deliver slavery. Anger convinces us we are strong while it drags us like a chained animal. Envy tells us we deserve more while poisoning every moment we already possess. Fear whispers that safety lies in obedience, but the morning reminds us of a brutal truth: if we cannot govern our own reactions, the world will govern them for us. And the world is a harsh master. The fifth discipline: speak with purpose. Stopping the performance of niceness does not mean speaking recklessly. It means speaking deliberately. Every word should carry the weight of thought behind it. A Roman statesman once warned, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." This is why discipline must guide speech, not politeness, not approval. Discipline: we speak when our words serve truth. We remain silent when they serve vanity. This restraint is rare. Most people speak to be liked. Few speak to be honest. Fewer still speak to improve themselves and others. But those who do gradually transform the environment around them, because honesty reasoned honesty has a strange effect. It forces reality into the open. The sixth discipline: accept isolation. There is a quiet cost to this path. When we stop playing nice, some people drift away. They were never interested in truth. They were interested in comfort. But comfort built on illusion cannot survive long in the presence of discipline. This is why the ancient writings repeatedly warn us not to measure our lives by popularity. Popularity changes with the wind. Character remains, and when we accept this, a deep calm begins to form. We no longer fear being misunderstood. We no longer chase applause. We simply continue the work. The seventh discipline: begin again. Each morning, every sunrise presents the same opportunity to reclaim the mind, to silence destructive emotions, to speak with clarity, to act with discipline. and to stop performing a role that weakens the soul. This work never ends. Even the wisest among us struggle daily. One emperor, burdened by war and politics, reminded himself constantly, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. There is something beautifully ruthless about those words. No excuses, no theatrics, just action. And so the morning returns again tomorrow. When it does, we will face the same question that waits for every thinking human being. Will we live honestly, or will we play nice? The Discipline of the Morning Mind Part 2. The war within morning does not simply arrive. It reveals, in the dim space between sleep and waking, when the world has not yet begun its noise, something honest emerges within us. Not the version of ourselves we show to others, but the version that lives beneath the performance. And if we listen carefully in that quiet moment, we notice something unsettling. There is resistance, a subtle voice that urges delay, a whisper that asks for comfort, a temptation to remain soft, agreeable, harmless. This is where the real struggle begins, because to stop playing nice is not first a confrontation with the world, it is a confrontation with ourselves. We discover that the part of us seeking approval is deeply rooted. It learned long ago that survival often depended on pleasing others, avoiding conflict, blending in with the expectations of the crowd. But the same instinct that once protected us now weakens us. If left unchecked, it turns a thinking human being into a performer who smiles when he should speak, who nods when he should question, who agrees when his conscience demands resistance. And so the morning becomes the battlefield where this performance must end, not through anger, but through discipline. The 8th discipline. Examine every emotion. Most people live as servants to their emotions. A comment from another person ruins their day. A small insult ignites hours of resentment. A moment of praise fills them with pride. They drift from feeling to feeling, like ships pushed by unpredictable winds. But those who seek mastery over themselves must learn a different habit. They examine their emotions before obeying them. An old teacher once told his students something that still echoes across centuries. It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. This realization changes everything. It means the insult itself has no power. The disappointment itself has no power. The obstacle itself has no power. Only our interpretation gives it force. And so each morning we train ourselves to pause before reacting. When anger appears, we ask, is this emotion serving justice or feeding pride? When fear appears, we ask, is this warning wisdom more merely habit? When resentment appears, we ask, why am I giving another person control over my peace? This questioning does something powerful. It breaks the chain between emotion and action, and in that small gap between feeling and response, freedom begins to grow. The 9th discipline. Accept the nature of people. Much of our suffering comes from unrealistic expectations. We expect fairness from people who have never practiced justice. We expect honesty from those who have built their lives on deception. We expect gratitude from individuals who barely understand their own motives. And when those expectations collapse, we feel betrayed. But the truth is simpler and harsher. People behave according to their character. Nothing more, nothing less. An emperor once wrote to himself, when you wake up in the morning, Tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. At first glance, this sounds cynical, but its purpose was not bitterness, it was preparation, because when we accept the flawed nature of humanity, we stop being surprised by it, and once surprise disappears, resentment loses its power. This is another meaning of stop playing nice. It means refusing to pretend that human behavior will always be reasonable. Instead, we face reality calmly. Some people will misunderstand us, some will oppose us, some will resent our discipline, but their reactions belong to them. Our responsibility lies elsewhere. The 10th discipline. Guard the inner citadel. Inside every person exists a place that must remain untouched by the chaos of the world, a quiet center, a fortress of judgment and reason. If that place falls, everything falls with it. The ancient thinkers often described this inner space as something sacred, not in a mystical sense, but in a practical one, because without it, we become prisoners of external circumstances. A rude stranger ruins our mood. A difficult colleague poisons our thoughts. Temporary failure convinces us that our efforts are meaningless, but those who guard their inner citadel refuse to grant such power to the outside world. They understand something essential. Events are temporary. Character is permanent. When insult arrives, they examine it calmly. When praise arrives, they accept it cautiously. When obstacles appear, they treat them as training. A philosopher once expressed this idea in a single, powerful line. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This is the mindset that transforms hardship into strength, and it begins with one simple habit. Protect the mind. Do not allow every passing emotion, opinion, or criticism to enter unchallenged, because the moment we stop guarding our thoughts, the world begins shaping them for us. The 11th discipline. Replace reaction with intention. One of the quiet tragedies of modern life is how quickly people react. Someone speaks, and we immediately answer. Someone criticizes, and we immediately defend. Someone disagrees, and we immediately escalate. But reaction is rarely wisdom. Reaction is instinct, and instinct without discipline often leads us away from the life we claim to pursue. To stop playing nice also means stopping the habit of impulsive agreement. We do not nod simply to keep peace. We do not flatter simply to gain approval. We do not pretend simply to avoid discomfort. Instead, we slow down, we think, and when we finally respond, our words carry the weight of deliberate intention. This habit is uncomfortable at first. Silence often makes others uneasy. They expect quick answers, quick smiles, quick agreement, but those who are committed to self learn to resist this pressure, because truth deserves patience. And wisdom grows in the space between stimulus and response. The 12th discipline. Discipline over comfort. Comfort is seductive. It whispers that we have done enough, that we deserve rest, that pushing further is unnecessary. But comfort rarely leads to growth. More often, it leads to stagnation. This is why those who pursue inner strength begin their day by confronting something difficult, not to punish themselves, but to remind themselves who is in charge. Sometimes that difficulty is physical, rising earlier than necessary, training the body while others remain asleep. Sometimes it is intellectual, studying ideas that challenge our assumptions, examining our own flaws without mercy. Sometimes it is emotional, facing fears we would rather ignore, speaking truths we would rather soften. Each small act of discipline strengthens the same muscle: self-command. And self-command is the foundation of every great life. Without it, talent dissolves, ambition collapses, good intentions remain forever unrealized. The 13th discipline: refuse the tyranny of approval. There is a quiet addiction that controls more lives than any substance. The desire to be liked. It begins innocently. We want acceptance. We want belonging. We want to avoid rejection, but gradually this desire grows stronger. Soon, we are adjusting our opinions to match the crowd, softening our principles to maintain harmony, avoiding difficult conversations because they threaten our image. At that moment, something dangerous has happened. We have handed the steering wheel of our life to public opinion. One philosopher warned about this trap with brutal clarity. If you seek tranquility, do less. Or rather, do what is essential. Approval is rarely essential. Character is. Truth is. Justice is. When we begin to prioritize these over popularity, something strange occurs. Our circle becomes smaller, but our mind becomes stronger, because we are finally living according to reason rather than applause. The quiet transformation. These disciplines are not dramatic. They do not produce sudden applause or immediate recognition from the outside. They may even appear invisible, but inside, something profound is happening. The mind becomes calmer, the emotions become clearer, the sense of direction becomes stronger, and slowly, imperceptibly, the person who once played nice begins to disappear. In his place emerges someone different, someone steady, someone difficult to manipulate, someone capable of facing the chaos of the world without surrendering his inner order. This transformation does not require perfection. Even the greatest thinkers struggled with anger, frustration, and doubt, but they returned to the same practice again and again. Observe the mind, correct the judgment, strengthen the character, begin again tomorrow. The work continues, stopping the performance of niceness does not mean becoming harsh. It means becoming honest. It means replacing emotional weakness with rational strength. It means refusing to allow destructive emotions to dictate the course of our lives. And this is only the middle of the journey, because the deeper challenge still awaits, the challenge of transforming adversity into advantage, the challenge of acting with courage when comfort calls us backward, the challenge of living with integrity in a world that often rewards the opposite. These lessons belong to the next stage of the path, and the morning is not finished with us yet.